to the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add to the agenda? Seeing no additions to the agenda, we will accept that.
Oh, Kyle.
I think it's just, no.
Showed his name tag.
Yeah. Kyle, did you want to add something to the agenda?
No.
Okay, then just come in there when you need to, okay? I like to be able to come on this. So approval of the minutes. I need a mover and a seconder, Mr. Sufi, Mr. Zia. Does anyone have any changes they'd like to make to the minutes? Seeing no changes, all those in favor of approving the agenda? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Kyle, on your end, are you guys all approving or abstaining or?
Can you see our hand?
No, they went too fast.
Yeah, we approve.
Okay, thank you. So we have approved minutes, so now we move on to open question period. This is the part where the public gets to ask questions.
We just threw the agenda.
There was no changes to the agenda, so it's just approved as is.
Like you said, all those in favor of approving the agenda.
Oh, so well, I meant minutes.
Yeah. Well, in that case, I'm abstaining. I wasn't able to read that.
Is there any questions from the public for BUSAC? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to notes from the speaker. Hi everyone. So this is, I know this is our last listed BUSAC meeting of the year, but because of the way elections lined up, we do actually have one additional meeting. It's either going to be next Wednesday or the following Wednesday. You guys all have received a doodle poll, so fill it out as soon as possible so that we can make sure that we schedule a meeting when most people are available. I know most of you are available once the next row is here, but we're going to try our best. This is really exciting because we get to use our video conferencing thing that we did at the beginning of the year. So all of our friends from the West Coast are here. So that's super cool. At the next meeting, the next meeting is probably just going to be ratifying the election results, and we're going to do a little awards ceremony after the meeting, just amongst us, the speakies. And Riller's final report, I guess, for the year is going to be also delivered. This also means that you have all received a week extension on your final end of year reports, which I have received 0 of so far, so I really hope those all get in for the next meeting and I don't put them down. So that'd be really helpful for all of us for transition and also to really capture your experiences as you've seen it and your thoughts on BUSAC through the year. But other than that, we're really close to quorum. We have 18 people and quorum is 15. So we have a fairly short agenda considering we're on second readings of everything. So without further ado, I'll move into the presentation from Greek. You guys want to click this next page?
Okay, well, hi, my name is Dewey and I'm from the Zeta Psi fraternity at Brock.
My name is Michaela. I'm from Omega Sigma Chi sorority. I'm Alexa from Alpha Psi sorority.
Jason from Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity.
And we make the current executive for the newly formed Greek Life Council here at Brock. Okay, so I'm going to start off by telling you what Greek Life Council is and why we're here. So Greek Life Council is the unified council for all Greek organizations here at Brock, as well as interest groups. So groups seeking to start up a chapter of maybe a fraternity or a sorority here. And what our purpose is to be a link of communication between each organization, as well as between the Brock University Student Union and Greek organizations respectively. So we also facilitate philanthropic events, which is the cornerstone for each organization individually, and large-scale community events.
So we currently have 168 active members in Greek Life and over 100 graduated members who are also sometimes taking part. And as we've all stated, we're a part of 4 different organizations. So there are 4 organizations on campus right now, there are 2 interest groups as well. So it looks like Greek life is going to be increasing in size, hopefully come the fall, but in the coming years as well.
So, like Louis said, philanthropy is a huge part of all of our organizations, and we're hoping that it's something that will be a big part of like our relationship that we form with the student union. So this year we have contributed more than 3,000 hours of community service with Brock events included in that, and we raised almost $17,000. We plan our own events and fundraise as well, and we're hoping to advertise for those philanthropy events on campus, because currently we can't like have tables, rent them out or anything. So we just try to promote them off campus, which is kind of hard sometimes.
So many Greek life councils have been formed throughout Canada. We contacted 4 existing councils at Carleton University, Laurier University, Waterloo University, and University of British Columbia, and for advice about forming our council. And all 4 of them act as the liaison between the student union and the organizations within that area.
Okay, so why we're here pretty much is because we want to be recognized as a group at Brock University, and not necessarily as a club because we don't need funding from the student union, and we just want to have, I guess, benefits such as getting vendor fair tables, which we've had troubles with getting in the past, as well as the ability to book tables for philanthropy events. So as we just talked about, we do a lot of fundraisers for the community and whatnot, and we need to advertise that at the school. Many clubs get to do that for certain of their events, and we go through a really hard time doing so. We had a snap ball hockey tournament earlier this semester, and it's something. Alright, so as I was saying, we had a snap ball hockey tournament earlier this semester, and we had a really hard time getting tables for signups for teams. So we only got one probably a couple days before the tournament actually happened, and that really affected our turnout and the money we could donate to the special needs activity program. Yeah, I got it. And we also need the ability to book rooms for meetings and information sessions. So just like we're here telling you guys what we're about, each individual organization needs to tell people who are interested in getting or becoming part of it what they're about. So we might need certain rooms in the school, and clubs can do that, but we can't. And if we're not recognized under BUSAC, we can't do that as well. And ultimately, we just want to work with the student union because we feel that Greek life is a huge part of the Brock community in general. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, we're willing to take any of that.
Any questions for the reps from Greek life? Yeah, go ahead.
What are some of the groups at Brock that you represent? What are some of the groups at Brock that you represent?
That we represent? Well, we represent the Greek organizations, so Zeta Psi, Omega Sigma Chi, Alpha Epsilon Phi, and Alpha Pi Phi. Those are the 4 groups we currently represent. There's 2 interest groups, and they're coming in contact with us this following week to see how we can help them out in starting up.
Any other questions?
What do you see the role is of the Greek council is in the long term?
Long term is to keep a line of communication between each Greek organization and the Brock University Student Union, as well as, I guess, relay events we're doing. So each organization, if they're putting up an event, will have to go through us, and we have to sign off on that event, and then we present those events to BUSAC to see if the school, if we can use space in the school or anything of that sort.
Do you guys have like a set of rules that you follow amongst yourselves?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
My question is, you said that you're not a club, so you want to book fairs at tables at homes. That's almost okay, great. Just kidding. Tables at vendor fair. And so how are you planning to advertise yourself? So like, how do you reach out to students? Are you a volunteer opportunity? Are you a social group? Are you a networking opportunity?
Well,
Yeah, I know it's not her
We're
question.
kind of all of those things.
Yeah.
So all of us stand for different things, mainly being around philanthropy.
Okay.
It is also a social group, of course. It's a social connection that helps you. I know that outlet. I have gotten jobs through my organization just from having those connections. So it's just really a different outlet for, there's certain people who really enjoy different clubs on campus, and there's different people.
Do you target like first years then?
We honestly target, I know, every
Yeah, we go through everyone.
It's
There's-
mostly like, is it upper year students mostly, or is it kind of all through ages?
all ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not become a red flag club is an option to get recognized abroad? Like, why
Why,
not do that?
why we don't want to be a club?
Yeah.
Primarily because we don't need any funding from BUSAC at all. And secondly, because there's a whole process, we're doing it as a collective. And if we're going to be a ratified club at Brock, I would have to go through each individual organization doing their own thing with BUSAC.
So you want to work with us, but and using our resources, but you don't want to be controlled by us, or I'll say that supervised by us, right?
Well, essentially we are, because we apply for things to you, and you either accept or decline what we want. We still go through the same process of here's the event we want to run, here's the space we need, and you either tell us yes or no, just like other clubs do. It's just we have a harder time even getting those meetings in the first place.
Mr. Suki?
For the benefit of council, can you go over how one person could possibly join one of the organizations?
So we have a process called recruitment or rush. It happens in each semester, usually the first 2 weeks, and there are just a bunch of events that kind of encompass everything that we do throughout the year. So we have philanthropy events, for sororities like sisterhoods, like different kinds of events like that, kind of showing what we do throughout the year if you want to potentially become a member. And then after rush, we hand out bids or like invitations for people to join the organization.
Any other questions? Okay, friends, do you guys have any questions? You guys enjoying it? Hang on a second, can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, hello, Greg.
Oh,
All right, I just have a specific question. In terms of how this Greek Life Council would differ from the club policy committee in terms of like promotion of events and their relationship between your entity and BUSAC as a whole. I'm just wondering why you couldn't come to CBC and we could do that kind of stuff for you.
Here's the answer.
I didn't really hear his question.
He said, why wouldn't you just come to a closed policy committee instead of creating a separate one? Is that right, Mr. Sergi?
Well, I understand the constraints of it not being like the equivalent of a club. However, it seems like what you're trying to accomplish in terms of the Greek Council will be friendly with the club policy committee in terms of like promotion of events and nurturing that relationship between Greek life and the BUSAC as a whole.
My assumption is that we'd be dealing with the same people anyways, so in promoting our events, we'll have to apply to the same process clubs do as well, and talk to the same people. Am I right or wrong?
It depends on what the setup looks like, but yeah, essentially, yeah.
All right.
Are you happy with that, Mr. Sergi?
No, just because I'm wondering what the difference in standard would be in terms of like, what standard we would be holding the committee to in terms of like practice, and how that differs from what the policy committee would be hoping to accomplish.
Okay, basically, it makes our process of getting space at school a lot easier. This way, it'll be the same as a club, but we do not want to be a club under BUSAC because that has to deal with 4 organizations as opposed to 1. And as Greek life expands, maybe next year it'll have to deal with 6 as opposed to 1. So this makes everything a lot easier.
Did you hear that, Mr. Sergi?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Is there any other questions from Vancouver?
No, no, we're good.
Thank you. I'm muting you again. All right, well, then you guys are good to go.
Right. Well, thanks for your time. time. And
Alright, so first item on the agenda for today is the capital request second reading. Making a mover and a seconder for the second request, Mr. Sufi, Mr. Thibodeau. Tebow. Only that. It's only that. Hashtag speaker. Julia, would you like to speak all to?
Yeah, for those of you that weren't here last week, General Brock currently has a freezer that it uses to store things like hot dogs and booster juice pre-packs and that kind of thing. It's a pretty old freezer. It predates any of the people that currently work there now at BUSAC. And it is a bit of a public health liability. There's mold growing on the inside. It isn't a self-defrosting freezer, so it's a great big rigmarole to have to defrost it. And it does frost up very, very quickly. So we would like to upgrade the freezer. I think we provided 3 quotes. There was one that was the least expensive, I think, that we wanted to go for. It actually had, it's self-defrosting. I can't remember what it's called, the technical term, but it's a self-defrosting freezer. It's energy efficient. It's a slightly larger cubic footage in terms of space than the one we kind of currently have, and it's upright, so it will take up less space in the storeroom, which is an advantage too. It was approved in the first reading last week with, I think, unanimously. I don't think there was any abstentions, and so we'd just like approval for a second reading. So I can go ahead and give Heather the opportunity to lie.
Any questions about the second reading of this freezer? We're checking across the country. Do you guys in Vancouver have any questions about the freezer?
No, we're good.
Okay. Yep, we can still see you, just so you know.
Very pretty those here.
All right, seeing no other questions, all those in favor of approving the second reading of the capital request? Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm sorry, I'm really tired right now.
Just
I'm here.
We're on the clock, be embarrassed. All right, so that is passed. You can tell Heather to go ahead and file that.
Thank you.
All right, so we have the second reading of all these bylaws that we went over last week. And I would certainly entertain a motion to omnibus pass all of them, but if anyone does have one problem that they would like to address before the second reading, if we do make a motion to omnibus, then we will take those ones out, and then we'll pass all the ones that you're happy omnibusing, and then we can identify, or then we can talk about the ones that you aren't. So if anyone would like to make that motion to omnibus, I would entertain that. I'm sure everybody agrees. Yes, Colin, are you making that motion? Seconded by Barry. So does anyone want to take any of the bylaws out of that omnibus motion before? Yes, make them.
No, we're cool, that's good.
You guys are good on omnibusing? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna vote in favor of omnibusing, and then we'll have a vote on the omnibus. So all those in favor of omnibusing the bylaws together? All those opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you. All right, so is there any discussion on passing these at all, or are we good to just go to a vote? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of passing the bylaws, second reading? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Only 2 abstentions. Yeah. And Vancouver voted. All right. Additional meeting discussion. Now we're on 14. All right. So, as you know, we sent out the request for a doodle poll. We haven't heard back yet from everyone. So if you haven't filled out, can you please fill that out ASAP? I think to make things all nice and equal, we should have a vote on a motion to have one additional BUSAC meeting on either the 1st or the 8th. because that way it leaves us open just in case. But we'll definitely let you know by. Okay, so far we have the 1st as a good date for everyone, if you guys just want to do it as that, so Sri, do you want to make that motion?
Motion to schedule the next BUSAC meeting for April 1st, and if that one doesn't reach quorum, then have one scheduled for April 8th.
We'll get, but yeah, it's seconded by Barry. Any discussion on that? And just so you guys know the context, the elections end tomorrow, we need one meeting to ratify those elections results. Plus, we're also going to talk about Riddler and then do the awards, so it should be a fairly quick meeting depending on the report and those procedures. So, is there any discussion on having that additional meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor of scheduling one additional BUSAC meeting? All those opposed? Any of you opposed? Okay. Any abstentions?
Go put your hand down if that's under their own hand.
All right.
And
move on to the general manager's report.
Transition is really, I did send it out. I was a little bit later than when the agenda went out. Yeah, I just kind of had to where I've been doing transition, retreat planning, and coordinated interviews for the student coordinators that'll start in the summer, and the small number starting in September, which is pretty much my life. You can find me in the boardroom interviewing if you want to see me this week. That's about it, really.
Any questions? Yeah, Sri.
My question's actually about your report from last meeting. We didn't get to talk about it, but
Okay.
it's a meeting in early. In your report, you mentioned that the popularity of flavors has gone down this year, and that you were looking at your options.
Yes.
I was just wondering what you might be leaning towards doing, either like revamping it and keeping it like an independent thing, or bringing it out of a franchise like Subway and Arby's.
I think, so our ideal scenario would be to rent that space and take away the administrative burden from the food court manager. But I don't, just because of the nature of the food court and how integrated the prep areas are for each of the different units, we don't think that that's necessarily an option that we'll be able to pursue. So what we're looking at instead is franchise opportunities. They tend to be less risky in terms of attracting student consumers, and because it's a sort of tried and tested preparation procedure, often they're a lot more efficient and in terms of costs for food, and also in terms of labor requirements. So I think we're probably going to lean towards a franchise, and at the moment, just because Flavors was popular for its pizzas for quite a long time, I think we're going to look at a pizza franchise, but I can't really say anything more than that.
Any other questions for the GM? Vancouver, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you.
It's really cool.
All right, thank you for your report. So Paul did send in a very brief report. I know it wasn't circulated before. Okay, so he sent us a very short report, essentially that he's been working on the turf field referendum. Yes, sir.
Did we approve the general managers?
We don't approve reports anymore. We haven't for this whole semester.
Apparently I haven't been.
I know it's usually late when we get to that point and everyone's checked out, so that's so Paul has been busy with the turf field MOU, and he is currently at the athletics banquet, which is why he's not here tonight. So if you have any questions for him, I'm sure you can direct it to his email or Twitter account or Facebook page or anything that's like, or find it on also social media there. And I guess I'll ask over there. Drew, do you have any verbal report you'd like to give briefly about CASA?
Yeah, CASA is going well. Over the weekend we were at BUSAC in the General Assembly. All those papers got passed. It was pretty productive. As for CASA, we've only been here for a day so far. Good updates on everything, and then hopefully on Friday we have a plenary. I'll be able to update more on what's going on in terms of operating procedures, bylaw revisions, and the general structure of the organization. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Isaki? Seeing none, John, you're free to go back to the bench.
Say.
Mr. Urban, do you have any more reports you'd like to give? I guess not.
But, okay, who's me?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you go.
Sure. Other than my report, I will reiterate to council, I'll post it on the Facebook group, tomorrow's drop-in sessions for any students that would like to discuss what they'd like to see in the next Brock president. The time off the top of my head, I think it's 12 till 1:30. I know it's in my report, but I'll bring that up to BUSAC again. They're small drop-in sessions, so you would just talk to 3 individuals from the hiring committee. It would be really beneficial to get some students out. I've talked to a number of students to see if they would like to come by tomorrow, so that would be the most important thing. Anything else I can discuss in far more detail and add to my report next week.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Urban? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Urban, you can go back to sleep. And Mr. Rose, finally.
Hi everyone. First updates that Entrepreneurship Week was an awesome success, so thank you for everyone involved and everyone who supported. We're continuing to meet, Juliet and I, with St. Catherine's Transit and work through some of the changes that we're looking for next year. Spencer's been an awesome part of that transition, so thank you, Spencer, I know you're there. Sponsorship coordinator is a position that we're adding for this year, and I'm really excited about that. Some of the lessons that I learned throughout planning Entrepreneurship Week are part of what legitimized the decision to add that position, so really excited to have that for this year. The transition is going well with respect to the new exec. Everyone's well ahead of schedule, and that's awesome. There's a lot of passion and enthusiasm, which is great. I just about finished, well actually today I finished the first draft of the recruitment proposal that we're going to pitch to members of senior admin within the next 2 weeks for that $100,000. So I've been meeting with people from the recruitment office and the new exec and current exec and various other stakeholders to round out that proposal and make it look great. And last, the seminar room bookings that we're working on for this semester. Jen Lee's been a great help, and that's all ready to go for as soon as exams start. So look forward to studying in seminar rooms. Woo! Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Rose? Yeah, Mr. Varian.
Hey Kyle, it's Jeff.
What's up, buddy?
So you met with St. Catherine's Transit?
Yeah, we had a meeting with them last week. It was mostly an introductory meeting for Spencer. We didn't have any resolutions that we made or anything like that. We're continuing to work through the proposals that we made that you were a part of the conversation for. However, we don't have any, we have 2 options that we're looking at, and we haven't quite decided on what we're going to go with yet.
All right, well, if you want to sit down with me within the next 2 weeks, whatever time that you have available before your next meeting, I will make time for that.
Okay, thanks a lot. Talk to Spencer after the meeting as well, but yeah, we'll definitely follow up when we're back.
All right, great, thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Rose? Seeing none, thank you. All right, so we'll go into closed question period. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask anyone else in the room? Yeah, Mr. Craig.
So I have a question for my constituents. Unfortunately, the CRO isn't here to answer it, but I'm going to ask that. This is from one of my constituents. Why was the ballot for the turf field referendum so biased towards the yes side? How does this reflect a neutral and objective political process? If it is nothing but positive from Brock, why is there a vote at all? Is there something we aren't being told?
All right, Mr. Rose is saying he'd like to answer situation. Mr. Rose?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
Can you pull I want to make this statement now that the actual ballot question itself was completely neutral. What you're probably referring to was the yes ballot, which obviously had bias towards students voting yes. I'll read the actual question itself, and then you can kind of determine if people think it was biased or not. But it says, do you support the transfer from the existing Brock University Students' Union Strategic Expansion Levy, Fund Levy, in the amount of $200,000 per year over a period of 5 years to Brock University in support of the construction of a new artificial turf facility in accordance with the Memorandum of Understanding as presented. In my personal opinion, that's extremely non-biased. So yeah.
I believe Mr. Craig is also referring to the section under the yes and no voting spots in the ballot. The yes side has quite a bit of information about supporting the turf field referendum, and the no side is a short line.
Sorry. If I could just jump in there for a second, there was no side. The yes side obviously would support what it stands for. The yes side as in wanting to see that students vote for the turf field. Also, again, what Kyle did read out was the question that went directly to council and as well as the committee, the referendum and polls petition committee that voted on that to bring forward. So the question is neutral, but certainly yes, the yes side is just like if somebody was running for an executive election or for council, you want to promote the benefits, or you can technically write what you want to write for the yes side or for your own ballot. I'll leave the rest to Kyle to kind of continue if he wants to answer.
So that answer every question?
So to be clear, it wasn't my question, it was my constituent's question, and I believe it does. I believe that they didn't have a problem with the question itself, but with the ballot words. Yeah, thank you very much for providing an answer though, thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Joel. Any other questions for closed question period? Seeing none, I will move on to information reminders. So if anyone else has any tips.
I have. So if you would like to have your photograph taken for the year-end BUSAC composite, then there are some final dates and times when you can go to the TR room, which is the room next to Skybar, and just let the photographer know that you're from BUSAC and they'll take your photo and they will charge you. These are March 26th, 1:30 to 4, March 27th and 30th and 31st, 11 to 4, and then April 1st, 2nd, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and 9th, 11 to 4.
I'll post those on the.
Yeah, I'll forward those to you, Kaylee, and then, yeah.
Thank you. Any other information or reminders? The only one for me is to fill out the doodle poll, and actually get in the boozies. You need to RSVP on the Facebook group ASAP, and there is an award for BUSAC Counselor of the Year. So you can feel free to nominate yourself or nominate one of your colleagues if you feel they are so deserving of the most prestigious award you can possibly win in the universe. I was a 2-time runner-up, which is devastating, but you know that's. Yeah, but I'm speaking honestly. Yeah, and we'll also be doing some of our fun awards at the next meeting. And Kaylee worked really hard on getting the returning and exit surveys done and actually finished them until the browser crashed and then we didn't save it and lost everything. So she will be doing it again tomorrow. So clever, Kaylee. Thanks, technology. So she will be doing that again tomorrow. And then as soon as we have those up, we'll send them out to you. I'd ask that you personally fill out the survey because obviously like we made it so that it will be anonymous. So that way you can give your feedback, whatever you so choose. I'd ask that you don't share the link, because at the next BUSAC meeting, we are going to bring all the questions, so that way there's no questions about what the questions are, they'll all be laid out. I just don't want you guys to see them ahead of time and like really have time to think about your answers. I want you to be able to answer like while you're reading and while you're learning and while you're engaging in that material. Because I think it'll actually benefit all of us if you can just think honestly and critically reflect with yourself. But yeah, like I said, we'll bring them to the next meeting so that way if anyone has any questions about what the questions are, it'll be put out there black and white for the whole world to see. Does anyone in Vancouver have any information or reminders?
Just like to remind everybody that it's Wellness Week, so be sure to check out all the programming that's available.
Any other ones? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Reedy, Mr. Zia, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Half the country abstained. Okay. All right, thanks, Vancouver. This actually worked fairly well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love you, Singa.
Actually, fake.
What happened to